What's good, y'all, and welcome to another vid. So, gear rate stages 22 to 24 are out, and we are going to be starting our guide series, if you want to call it that, at gear rate 1. So what you're going to get in this video is specifically more of a 22 and also 23 focused approach, because 24 is a true slaughterhouse of epic proportions. So what you're going to get is how do you gear your units, which units are relevant, and then a run to kind of just give you a visual idea of what's going on.
Our research begins.
Let's kick this off by talking about the most prevalent units, the most important units, and then down there are more like suggestions-ish or like niche-ish combos. So let's start with Ingrid. Ingrid is by far the strongest unit in this entire fight right here, and the reason being is because she's the strongest AoE mage. There is never a time when there is no enemy in front of your Ingrid, which means your Ingrid is always going to be able to shoot, is always going to be able to enter into her like overpowered super stance where she shoots her special attacks. And yeah, Ingrid is just super strong here. And outside of that, obviously, if you want to make her even stronger, once you get that A3, you take her to a whole new level. And then if you get that A5, you're going to be able to ignore even more magic rest. Ingrid is pretty much able to easily help you through 22, make your life a whole lot easier on 23, and probably 100% required if you want to clear 24. Next up, Boreas. Boreas, super strong AoE mage, and also most importantly, you have the freezes so that the enemies stop hitting your wall, so you have CC. And then on top of that, every time you freeze, they are also getting hit with anti-heal. That anti-heal is with him. Basically, Boreas is the best source of anti-heal for this fight because he has the best amount of uptime, because he doesn't necessarily need to be in ultimate for his anti-heal to work, and he also has the best amount of damage, right? So when it comes to anti-heal units, Boreas is the strongest. Magda, just incredible amounts of damage, pushback from the wall, chills behind the wall, so doesn't need to even be considered building tanky. You can just give her the best of your gear and she's gonna do an amazing job. Though there is a requirement to make Magda super strong, and that is obviously having the ability to give inspiration to her, and that's where the other two double S's come in play. Those are going to be Beelzebub and Diao. Both of them have enough range to reach a Magda even if she's bang dot in the middle of the map, so that everyone can get that inspiration. So advantage for Diao, obviously once you have a A1, you have that incredible range, you have that inspiration to give, and also if it gets tight, you can swap her into healer stance to allow her to help keep your units alive. And then Beelzebub just brings way too much to the table. I guess you could obviously rank him in front of Diao. And the reason for that is not only does he heal every unit from the Curse faction, which you can see already in the S tier, there's at least minimum 2 others in Viana and Magda, but also you pull units in, so you pull them away from the wall with his Vortex. You also get the slows, so you proc your cultist faction team members damage increase through faction bonus. And on top of that, you also inspire and you heal. Yeah, this cultist healing is ridiculous. The damage reduction also is ridiculous that you can give 2 cultists once you ult with him. And overall, he's pretty much just made for this fight, and he also does reach over to a Magda. And if you were to place him at the very front of these lines, he can also reach over to the other platform to inspire over there, though that doesn't necessarily come into play all that much. Next up, we got Viana. Viana with her execute. She is incredibly strong, though there's something you need to note, and that is there's a difference between you having and not having the exclusive gear, and that is because you're getting 10% more execution threshold and 100% more damage on your ultimate, meaning a Viana with exclusive gear, being in a Cataclysm set, is just a step above a normal Viana. And also what you need to note is it is not that hard to get a Cataclysm set on your Viana, because the only stats you require are going to be attack percent top stat, and then crit rate, crit damage as substats, no attack speed needed. And you could even skimp a bit on the crit damage substat requirements, because Vienna's exclusive bonus is just that strong for this fight specifically. Then lastly, hopefully to no one's surprise, is going to be Elowin with the field-wide AoE healing, and also the ability to just provide rage to everybody on the field, allowing you to cycle your ultimates more, allowing you to overall put out more damage. Then right here we got our S tier. We have Anora. Anora, she is the strongest AoE mage if you don't consider inspiration, and that's also the reason why she's there. Even in a field where she does get buffed by inspiration, so she takes up a slot, she still does more than enough damage to be justified to be used right here. She's also in both of the prevalent AoE factions, being the Esotericists and the Curses. If you put her in the Curse faction, she can obviously then get healed by Beelzebub, allowing her to stay alive easier, giving you a less of a headache-inducing fight sequence for 22, 23, 24. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about Anora. Once you also get an Imrit on top of that, you can start inflicting Winter Spites, more debuffs, self-debuffing. Hopefully the Winter Spite freezes then if you apply enough stacks. Bringing us to Dahlia. Dahlia also she has that same Ingrid range here. Nobody is ever going to really leave her range, so she's always going to be able to hit. She's also going to be able to provide the slows. She's also going to be able to provide the poisons, and overall do a really nice amount of damage. That's why she's there. She can really help you get further. So after Dahlia, you obviously got Imrit. Imrit's one benefit is the fact that he's an unnameable, which means he's going to be boosting everyone in your team just from him being in the team. And then also you have the ability to do normal damage, but more importantly magic damage, as long as you trigger his ultimate, as well as the bonus of making freezes last longer, as well as also inflicting Winter's Bite, which synergizes with Anora's Winter's Bite, and also with our newest hero right here, with Melric's Winter's Bite. Melric is so relevant here because you're gonna have like 3 units that do like a crazy amount of damage, and then everything else is a bit less. And specifically if you use Melric to boost someone like a Ingrid, Boreas, Magda, Björna, if you boost any of those, you're going to see a significant return on giving that 15% attack HP bonus to these units. So not only are you making them stronger attack wise, you're also giving them more HP so that they don't die as fast through the scourges. So Melric can help, and important here, you actually do want him to swap into his frost form, because in his frost form he's going to apply slows, he's going to apply freezes, and he's also going to apply Winter's Bite, which synergizes with Anora and Imrit. Then next up you have just 2 lords in Morrigan and Demi. The reason why they're that high is not because they're going to be used, it's not because they do crazy amounts of damage. No, it's simply because of the fact that the Curse faction is pretty much the premier, the strongest faction behind Ingrid's Watchers, if you were to call it that, but it's really at the end of the day just Ingrid herself. And yeah, that is the reason why they're so high. And one of the problems with Demi, sadly, is still the fact that she only has a 2-tile range, so she's only ever going to be able to apply her anti-heal to 2 out of 3 lanes, meaning that last lane is going to get healed up, they're going to do more damage to your wall, yada yada yada. Then the A tier is pretty much just a culmination of just good DPSs in general. With Karmit, you're not really going to see Karmit as much because the Curse faction and also obviously Ingrid's faction do kind of overweigh the Esotericists, and you don't want to play a Karmit unless you're bringing Esotericists, because at that point Karmit's ultimate is just way too expensive. So only really bring Karmit if you're bringing one of these, or I guess Raiden. Ardea, she just does a crazy amount of AoE damage. And also she can help you deal with the boss. Yes, the boss is invulnerable at the beginning of the fight, but that also disappears over time. So Ardea can definitely help you out if you were to place her behind the wall. Dolores, if you don't have a Diao, you have to use someone like a Dolores. So if you don't have a Diao, if you don't have a Beelzebub, you have to use someone like a Dolores, someone like a Dorza. The issue with Dorza is he's a bit contradictory because he makes your units weaker, so you would need to bring even more healing. So it's kind of like between Constance and Dolores. One issue with Constance though is her range is a bit awkward. Yes, she allows you to boost a Magda, but you cannot really boost more than one platform tile, which isn't quite enough really. So that's why the reason why she's down there in B. Then you've got Leia. Leia, amazing healing. If you have a Eluin on one side and then Leia on the side where your main damage dealers are, you're going to get the benefit from Eluin and then the extra rage from Leia, so allowing you to double stack. The same is true if you were to use someone like a Hollow. Next to that, she also obviously gives the damage bonus. You could also get the crit damage bonus if you have an exclusive artifact. So yeah, overall she's just a great help, and you can just pump her into Ingrid's faction if you were to want to do so. Then you got the next unnameable, same benefit as Imrit, so you're going to get the damage bonus to everybody else. You're also going to get the huge magic rest reduction. The only slight issue, I guess, is you have to find a way to keep him alive, and overall he doesn't do a crazy amount of damage. I guess he does do more damage, but you kind of have to get him to like High Awakening, so not that realistic. Laurel, so one of the issues with Laurel is you don't really have the space. More than in 21, what really is favored here is a full 8-man formation rather than a 7-man with a 1 swap slot where you just put in a Laurel. She can still work. The better your units are and the less you rely on multiple DPS, the better a Laurel. It's just she's not nearly as prevalent anymore as she was for 21. Artemis, popular faction in Curse, the ability to apply anti-heal, and he is pretty vital for you if you don't have a Boreas. If you don't have a Boreas, if you don't have an Artemis, you can also still use Lycia. I don't know if you have Lycia right there, but Lycia still works. And if you don't have any anti-heals, then the only way for you to win is to bring someone like a Vierna, someone like a Magda, and then also an Ingrid, and just DPS it to death. Yes, it is possible to beat 22 without anti-heal. It's just a DPS slaughterfest. Then you've got Mary. Mary's still relevant enough because you still get these very, very consistent freezes in stopping the enemies from hitting your wall, proccing the curse faction bonus, and overall also obviously with the slows with a basic attack. So you're just stopping enemies from killing your wall, buying yourself more time. Ibizu and Aeon. Ibizu, yes, she does a good amount of damage, but it's not quite there for like 22 and beyond. And Aeon is really just there for her Lord bonus, so these two just for Lord bonus. If you don't happen to have a Legendary Lord, then we've already briefly talked about the ESOs. Bit less important, but still there. And yeah. Outside of that, obviously we already talked about Hollow. Then you got Uridin. If you're not using a Vierna, you can use a Uridin for that execute. You could also use the two together, try to get some more like execute into execute, or once the first execute fail, use the second execute tactics going. You've got Iona. Iona just pretty much the strongest damage dealer out of the epics, popular faction in the cultist, and can technically work as a watcher under an Ingrid. But yeah, then you got Cerberus. Cerberus, you can just put him in. Cerberus obviously is going to work better if you also have someone like a Laurel in, so you can swap that last slot. And Cerberus is just there to obviously die, uses area AoE, and just help you burn through these enemies. And then these last units right here. Ingrid is great, but she's not great enough for like 23 and beyond. For 22, you can obviously find a way for her to work. And then you get Radiant just as like the weakest ESO boost being down here. Now, other suggestion-wise, other units. Someone we have to talk about is obviously Beatrix. I just kind of forgot to put her up there. I would rank her in like an A to S tier. She does a great amount of damage. Zealous, if you don't have a anti-heal at all, then bringing a Zealous with his artifact and then the rest full damage is going to be the best way to go. But we really need a Zealous rework for him to be truly relevant here. Xena only works if you can make her survive in front of the wall for like a couple seconds. You could try her in the middle to like damage the boss, help out a bit, but then again you kind of need a swapping team, so a team that has a swappable last slot instead of 8 permanents on the field. Then obviously Praetus does work, but only so long as you're using a Ingrid, because if you're not bringing Ingrid, Praetus just doesn't really do stuff. If you're bringing Praetus, if you're bringing Ingrid, you can then also bring a Pelagius for the pull-in, for the magic damage, for the true damage. He is alright. Thelen, same story. You kind of really want to bring a Ingrid too, and then you can justify bringing them for like strengthening that Lord bonus. Same is also, I guess, true with Constance to an extent. And then you got Kriya. Kriya, just because she's a popular faction, you can put her in. She's going to be doing some damage, but it's not going to be anything crazy. Fercy, if you're really struggling with staying alive, bringing a Fercy might work, bringing an Aelin might work, bringing a Tallulah might be what you need. Greed, yes, but Greed also no. He sadly doesn't do quite enough damage, but he can be valuable for bringing his magic rest down to the table. Fenris, yes, you can get the knockback and the stuns. He just doesn't do any real damage, and he's also a physical rather than a magical damage dealer. Arrogance, and the whole shenanigan of trying a nightmare team, it doesn't quite work, not even for 22, unless you get hard carried by something like an A5 Kigiri getting triggered behind the wall through a lust or some weird shenanigan like that with, I don't know, A5 Hardsit. It's possible, I just don't recommend it, especially at A0, you're not really going to make it happen. Lubu behind the wall might even be more useful than Ardea to an extent, because his AoE attack is 3 tiles, so you're going to be able to hit everyone that is in front of the wall. And outside of that, the rest of the units, yeah, there's obviously going to be some niche units you can apply at certain points that are going to work, but those at the top are pretty much the most popular, and obviously imagine yourself a Beatrix in there. So let's get into the fight and then how. Alright, this is the team we've picked out that we're going to use. We have Morrigan for the Lord bonus, Viana for damage and execute, Beelzebub for inspiration, slows, pullback, heals and damage reduction. Then Magda for the pushback and for damage. Beatrix just as another more damaging unit, more of like a generic pick. Could have also been like a Karmet, Kriya, anybody else. She's just there because she has nice synergy with Beelzebub, and I like to play with her. Then we have Raiden as the Lord bonus for the Esotericist, Boreas for the damage and anti-heal, Eluin for rage regen, Mary for slows, and Vortex as a healer. You might be wondering, oh, why aren't you using someone like a Hollow? Yes, we can use a Hollow, though we're not going to use her quite in the sense that you might think we're going to use her. And that is because Hollow really struggles with keeping multiple people alive. So even though it would be beneficial for us to have her on the same side as someone like a Beelzebub, it just becomes quite tedious and quite also even RNG heavy if you're going to even survive through all the waves. So we're just going to be putting her over here to help out Mary. It's not optimal, but it's the best you could make out of a Hollow. Someone that would be more useful or would give you the same kind of strategy, if my phone would stop ringing, is if you were to introduce a Leia. So Eluin on one side and then Leia on the other, because Leia does provide that constant AoE heal, which you really need if you want to deal with the Scourges. But enough talking. Let's get to doing the stage. So we're going to be opening it up with Magda, bringing in Beelzebub next. Beelzebub, you can see, is also providing the 12% Wings of Grace buff to Magda, who's one of our strongest DPS. And then next up it is us bringing in Boreas. With these units closing in, we are also going to wait a bit, let them get close, and then start off with our first offensive and bring in Viana too. Viana is just going to be ulting towards the end, or once it gets closer to that Forsaken Totem, just so we can get rid of them all before they get healed. And you can see we were able to deal with the first dog wave. And as always, the how close you get to dealing with the dogs, like the only real time you kill these dogs so fast is if you were to bring a Viana, but the ability to just deal with the dogs is what at least signifies that you stand a chance at beating the stage in the first place. So right here you can see we have our units on the field, and yeah, so even though these scourges are dangerous to our units, you can see this whole tick damage thing going on, they aren't quite as dangerous to our wall. So we're going to be waiting for these green guys to close in, because they are going to be doing by far the majority of the damage that our wall is going to take. And also here, obviously, we don't want to blow our load too early. We're just going to wait for these guys to close in and then start getting our units out. Once again, we are kind of going to hold that Vjörna ult back to the point where we see everyone get to that around below 50% health threshold, or as a better indicator also once we get closer to our ults ending, because when our ults end, obviously that's when no real more damage comes in, and that's when we get closer to the Forsaken Totem. And you can see right here we were able to also once again deal with this wave quite beautifully. Here obviously you can change a couple units out, like for example if you don't have a Boreas, bring in an anti-healer in Lucia in Artemis. Though something that I don't necessarily like all that much about Lucia Artemis as anti-heal options is just the fact that their anti-heal can't quite keep up with the amount of Forsaken Totems, and if you wanted someone that could keep up, you would have to bring in a Laurel to give them rage regen, otherwise their ult timings just aren't quite fast enough. So here once again, yes, these scourges are annoying, yes, these scourges do damage to our units, but it is these big boys that truly hurt us, and also we will have time to deal with the scourges before this next wave of scourges truly arrives. So that is why we're again going to kind of start off with the same rotation. Also here, let these units come a bit closer, then get that Merry Freeze, and just in case, activate your ultimate from your Eloin to make sure that no one truly dies. And you also then have the Wood Elf to kind of check out if there's any danger to any of your units. So right here, ultimates are again winding down, which means we're going to be executing, just so we can take advantage of these units being low in the first place. And then here we can also just put in a Wood Elf just in case, because Eloin might struggle with keeping units alive, and once the units die, that's when it's going to go heavily downhill. So right here, it's just us waiting to, again, pretty much get off that next rotation. So here obviously with the Merry Freeze, we can already start off with Beatrix and Beelzebub, get in the rest. Then let them again put up that damage. And use the Vjörna Execute to get rid of a couple units before the Forsaken Totem, as well as get in another freeze for the delays. Get that more ultimate rage going. So yeah, the difference between 22 and 23 is just, it's more of the same, just more of a DPS requirement, and also I think these scourges are going to be doing a bit more damage. So yeah, you have to be wary of that. But outside of that, it's really just okay, just bring more awakenings, just bring better gear, just bring slightly different timings, but at the end of the day, sadly, timings can only get you so far. Even here, there isn't anything you can do all that perfectly besides dealing with the green wave as fast as possible, and obviously dealing with the last wave as fast as possible. Anything past that really isn't going to help you much. So keep the list in mind, look at how we gear our units, and then slap together the strongest AoE team you can get. So that is going to be what allows you to go for either obviously clear 22 in the first place or move into 23. You can see right here, damage split, it depends on who you have, but Boreas not only for the anti-heal but also for his damage, as well as then Vjörna and also Magda. You can see Magda, obviously she got the Wings of Grace, she's doing the most. Vjörna's doing quite a lot, and you're going to see the same spirit with everybody else. So after the gearing, obviously we can quickly look through obviously the global teams, and you're going to see the same damage split on pretty much everyone and everything. So how do you gear your units in the first place? Honestly, it's way simpler than you might expect, or you might even expect it. But for Vienna, as we talked about, you really want that exclusive. You can get away without it, especially for 22, but starting from 23, if you are using her, getting that exclusive with the 10% execution threshold and extra damage, putting your execution threshold at a ridiculous 45% is something you should heavily favor. Crown of Souls for Vienna is also the best option. Then how do you build your inspiration unit? It's going to be attack with attack, and then attack speed if it's like a Beelzebub or a Diao who also need to heal, and then HP is never really a bad choice, but overall the main focus is going to be attack percent with attack, as well as right here attack percent with then attack and then attack speed if you can, as well as attack with attack speed. Artifact wise, Carrion's Call or Carrion's Call upgraded or Tear of Twilight, if you really have the luxury, are going to help your Beelzebub out quite a lot. And then here, you're pretty much going to be giving every DPS the same way, and that is full focus on attack, and that's it, right? You focus fully on attack. Crit damage is supposed to come from substats, attack speed comes from substats. So right here you can see we have attack percent with then attack. And Magda is one of those units where you don't really need HP bonus, so you could also give her more attack speed, you could give her more attack flat, you could give her more rage region flat. And also important is starting from 22, also like 23 and beyond, or even for 22, what you really want to bring is these 4-stat pieces, which are just at the moment the future of war, you could say. They are just what takes your units to the next level, especially on these high tier units like Ingrid, like Magda, like Beelzebub, like Boreas, just not on Fiona because she doesn't need the attack speed anyway. And also this whole scenario with them only giving the 10% attack, that's the reason why you want even more attack on the right side. So yeah, gearing kind of stays the same. Platform gearing is a bit differently, especially the platform, like the 3 units you have, the 2 at the top of the platforms and the one next to the wall, they do kind of need a bit of HP as substats, like for example right here or right here, just because it allows your healers to have more time to heal them, and also they're going to get healed for a bigger value because you have bigger max HP, and they also obviously can take more of a hit. So depending on, so the lower your damage, the higher your HP needs to be, because the lower your damage, the more scourges are going to stack up and the more damage you're going to take. So if you have someone like an Ingrid in, you might just one-shot all the scourges away before they even become a problem, which means you would get away with less HP. Artifact wise, Tear of Twilight is king on pretty much all mages, and outside of that then obviously you just use whatever you have that does damage, be it exclusive or a other artifact. You can see the same gearing philosophy once again on Boreas, with some flat attacks, flat HP, defense, and some extra HP. Elowin honestly here was a hodgepodge. You could have given her more, but the important part right here is you want a decent amount of healing effect, you want a good amount of attack, you want a nice amount of attack speed, and then if you can manage it, obviously getting this whole thing in a Invigoration or Wings of Grace helps with dealing damage. The important part is Elowin doesn't need as much HP as she has here, because she truly doesn't get hit all that much. She's quite safe at the bottom there. The ones that truly need HP are the units at the top, your damage dealers. Then you can either give her a Golden Scarab or also a Euphoric Orb. Mary, you just want to build her as tanky as possible. If you can make it, obviously a set is better than no set, so something like Tempered Will, Guardian or Unshaken Will are going to help your Mary survive longer. And if you don't have that, then right here you want to start with a max HP bonus, then attack speed and rage, then attack speed with HP bonus and rage, or even another HP percent with attack speed rage, depending on how good she stays alive. And then lastly, rage region main with attack speed and health, and here more health and attack speed as well as rage, and more health, attack speed and rage. So kind of the same thing. And then Nightmare Samsara, so she can give herself more rage, more freezes, more delays, as well as a hollow in Invigoration. Obviously it doesn't need to be Invigoration, especially if you're only using her for Mary. Important part here again is just that you get as much rage as possible. You can see 150%, and then a lot of attack speed, and then some attack, as well as, I guess, euphoric orb. So this is how you deal with Gear Raid 1, and we see each other in the next one. Peace! So here for this last part, just to give you more of an idea of who to use and to, I guess, give a bit of validity to my tier list, we'll just go through a couple of teams. And yeah, so for example, here you see with the top DPS being Viana and Ingrid, then you've got a Magda, Imrit, and Anora for the Winter Spite. Right here you have Praetus. Praetus is pretty much only there because, once again, you have a Ingrid to carry the day, Viana for the execute, Magda for the damage. Outside here, again, same scenario, you have a Praetus, but only because you bring in an Ingrid. You have a Curse Formation. You see Dahlia truly helping out damage-wise. Then again, also a Viana at the very tippity top. You can see Viana this time here, again, also in a Cataclysm. Let's see if the other one, see this Viana, as well as she performed right here. You see it didn't even take her to have her exclusive, but it's just overall easier if you can manage to just get a half decent curse set together. Once again, here, same scenario, same units with Diao, with everybody else. Boris again being here for the anti-heal. Yes, here you have a Demi, but if we check out Demi's damage, you can see Demi was never placed down in the first place. Boris for the anti-heal, Viana with the big boy damage, then a good old Dahlia to help out, as well as more executes right there. Once more Praetus, but only because of Ingrid, Praetus because of Ingrid. Here, as we talked about, a Leia. So what you're going to see is obviously Leia on the field, Eloin on the field, and also, I guess, a Hollow on the field, with overall once more a focus on a curse comp. But then again, you've got Ingrid. Here, same is true obviously for the teams. Here you also have some funky teams, like for example Ingrid and then Ardea. Ardea can still do damage, yes, but it is much more subdued. And then you have Cerberus as well as Vaudron, who only play minor roles. Then, as we talked about at 23, sadly you're gonna kind of see the same scenario. It is possible to be 23 without Ingrid. It just requires quite a lot of awakenings, quite a lot of investment. And if you're at that point in your account, you most likely already own an Ingrid. So right here you see, for example, A5 Ingrid completely does quite a nice job. Though this is, to an extent, even to me, very surprising that you have an Honora that does such a crazy amount of damage. You can see here, obviously, the Infernal Roar set boosting both her and her summon, with obviously Forsted perfect gear, as well as a 25 artifact, so you get that rage region, so you get that extra damage, so you get the extra attack. And then also the important part here is most likely going to be the A3 on Honora, which gives you that magic res ignore. So A3 Honora, she does hit quite hard, but it's also a limited that you had to pull a grand total of 4 times over 2 banners, combined with then again Imrit for the slows and Lycia. You can see Lycia being built in a full rage set, as I already talked about it, so that you are able to anti-heal every single wave, and you're gonna see his damage is pretty much non-existent, though he does provide the permanent anti-heal. Once again, here kind of same scenario. You got a Magda, you got a Ingrid. Ingrid once again here at A5. You can see the best gear is focused on these Ingrids with 4 stats and 3 stats, as well as also Cataclysm if you can make it happen. So yeah, it is pretty much more of the same in more scenarios. Here once again Ingrid top, then a Boreas, then Imrit, then these rest of the units for support. Here it's a bit more funky, but it's still kind of the same thing. You have the main focus on Ingrid, and as I said, Lubu can be considered because he does have the 3-tile hit range, as well as your Ardeas. Here this team also more normal. Again, massive damage from Björna. You can see it in her exclusive piece. So yeah, massive damage from Björna. Again, as supported by an Ingrid, followed up with an Imrit for the slows, for the freezes, as well as the pushback and damage from good old Magda. And I mean, you can see it's pretty much the same teams. And again, you would just have to think out an Ingrid and then replace it with like a High Awakening Boreas, High Gear Boreas, as well as, for example, someone like a High Gear Fiona. So it's possible, it's just very annoying, and you can see for the moment there's nobody that has cleared stage 24, but there's going to be a couple clears. It's most likely going to involve God Gear, everything A5 for the first few clears, and then might get a bit more realistic, but as you've seen from the run, there's not really a lot you can change in the first